So when we started in the historic race scene, my brother and myself, James, we were not only were we new to the historic race arena, that we were an unknown preparer as well. It's not just a question of investing in a machine tool. It's everything from that to having the right staff, the guys who's driven by what they're doing, the software for the cam production, the design guys upstairs, all the way through to the guys who's finishing components post-process. It's the whole encompassing environment that you need, and not only do we have to perform, but the cars had to perform and be reliable for events from anywhere from 60 minutes up to 6 hours. My name's Mark Bates from EB Equipment, stroke EB Motorsport. We're an engineering manufacturing business, started just over 60 years ago, specialising in bulk storage and conveyance systems. About 12-15 years ago we diversified into manufacturing components for primarily classic Porsches, 911s, competition cars, and that has sort of diversified into really manufacturing anything the customer requires, from restoration, modification to component production. EB Motorsport came about as a division of our parent company, EB Equipment, through a passion for anything automotive, primarily racing and old cars. So we decided to restore an early 911, 1973 example, about 12-13 years ago, that evolved into a race car to go historic racing. The lack of original components or reproduction items sort of drove us down a line in order to have to produce our own. And when we went racing and had some success with it, people would come to the pit garages, see the cars, the dialogue would open up where these came from, and from there the brand grew as we kept evolving the range of parts, and then we got a good reputation in the industry, really driven by the success in motorsport. And as we kept evolving the areas we wanted to go and race in, the cars evolved with them, and so did the components, and to where we are today.
I'm James Leet from HAAS Automation UK, and we have people very close to the business that are blown away by the capabilities here, namely because they're able to put cars back on track and the road that otherwise just wouldn't exist because the components are not available. And part of this was them taking control of the process because of that very fact parts weren't available. And that's a common story throughout industry, actually. And business can be stressful. And the main thing about stress to talk about is a lack of control. So again, in this business, if you're driving a Porsche at 150 miles an hour, it's not stressful, it's quite exciting. Lose control of it at 150 miles an hour, very different story. And it's the same with your business, and taking control of the process is what they've done here at EB by manufacturing parts that previously just weren't available, they did not exist. And we're finding across the country many other businesses are doing exactly that. Welding companies are taking control of the processes by now machining their own components rather than rely on an unreliable supply chain, for example. So from one component in the very early days, we've now evolved here to do many components in many different materials, unusual materials, magnesiums, exotics, you name it, they're doing it here. We've also got to the point where the machines that are on site are ready for the next stage of evolution, and of course HAAS's range are easily accommodated. Next gen controls are already being used here, so we can evolve to the next level of UMC, the next level of Y-axis lathe. So the future's bright for both EB and HAAS together.
So the bucket list was to have the opportunity to race on as many different iconic race circuits, and with the success that we were lucky enough to achieve from the various championships and race events we competed in, we did upset one or two people. Fingers were pointed, mainly at the cars, the components. Were the cars legal, and the components that we were obviously running on those to the FIA standards. So these obviously had to be investigated and have these validated. I think although at the time I found it fairly upsetting, I think in the long term that validated us as a business and as a component manufacturer, not only for the quality of the components but the reliability, because ultimately we're in a competitive environment, and not only did we have to perform, but the cars had to perform and be reliable. So at the outset, obviously the component production volumes were very low, as little as one-offs, and we were having to not only reverse engineer but remanufacture and validate these parts. We were working with third-party subcontract manufacturing, but it was a challenge to deal with the different manufacturers. Some don't want volume; they just want others do want volume production. And the other difficulty was the materials we wanted to work in, namely magnesium. Because of these difficulties and wanting to have the control, led us to investing in our own tool room, initially with one machine and then growing from there to the machine shop we have now.
So when we looked at the first CNC HAAS machine to come into EB, we were discussing the ST10 lathe, and quite quickly we established, because of the accuracies and the consistencies that EB required, we had to go for Y-axis, just so that we could put one job on and take it off complete. There was no extra referencing on a milling machine, and that's a theme that's carried on through to the UMC 750 as well, because ultimately these components are very accurate, they're very unique, and they end up on equipment that is tremendously expensive, millions of pounds in some cases.
I think EB Equipment, EB Motorsport's unique position in the market is the fact that we don't settle at anything than the best. Whether that's commercially acceptable or not, it's just the way we're built and the way we operate, and all the guys around us. And the market's evolved with that. Everything that we do, from competing, I mean, when we go racing, we race to win. It's not just the taking part. Not everybody's like that, but we are. We've been very fortunate to have that success that's proven out who we are as a company and as individuals. And our customer base is they're very passionate about their projects, be it Porsches or another brand or a component. And really, what puts us in a unique position is we understand the component, the cars, the preparation, and what it takes to build a championship-winning cars, or a concourse-winning restoration, or a bespoke build for a customer.